the Guanana Band of Mission Indians, the Hashiman Nation of Orange County, California.
Hi, and I'm Michael Lombardi. I've been involved in Indian gaming and Indian tribal issues in California for the past 18 years.
All right. Well, listen, we're just as pleased as we can be that you guys are with us today on the cutting edge. I have some serious questions to ask you today. First of all, Damien, could you clarify about your Indian tribe and about what your current status is in the state of California?
We are a state-recognized tribe. We were recognized by the state of California in 1993. We are in the process for federal recognition and have been in that process for well over 20 years.
And now, as we understand, there's 561 authorized Native American tribes in the United States, and you're there's about 147 that are seeking recognition. Is that correct?
About 250.
250 now.
Yeah.
I'll bet after all of this Indian gaming's gone on, right?
A lot of them have been in the process long before Indian gaming ever came about.
Right.
Self-included.
Well, Michael, let me ask you this. Let's go to Michael for a second. One of the things that's just national news all over the place is about Gail Norton, Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And I know that's such a complex issue, but I think what we need to do is if you can sort of just give us a current uptick on what's going on with that.
Well, there's a lawsuit underway right now, and it's been going on before Gail Norton became the Secretary of the Interior. It started when Bruce Babbitt was the Secretary of the Interior. And a Blackfoot woman named Evelyn Coble finally got tired of never getting her checks in the mail for the grazing that white ranchers were engaged in on her land in Montana. So on behalf of numerous tribal members and tribes throughout the United States, this is over 10 years ago, they filed a lawsuit. And the crux of the lawsuit is asking for an accounting of over $5 billion of trust fund money that the United States government has collected and yet to pay Indians. That lawsuit is going forward. Members of the Republican Party in Congress last month attempted to introduce a bill that would have only allowed the resolution of this issue to go back for 10 years. It was defeated last week in the House of Representatives. And so we're going to have a full accounting going back to 1888 when the Dawes Act was passed. The United States government took trust responsibility for Indian lands. We want to know where the $5 billion is that the United States government owes Native Americans.
One of the things that I was going to mention about that is that the Department of Interior shut down the website. What was that about?
Well, what happened was that Judge Lambert, who's prosecuting the case one night, got onto the computer and found out that he was able to surf through the Interior Department's website and get to individual trust accounts and manipulate the figures in those trust accounts. So he ordered the Secretary of Interior to shut that aspect of the Department of Interior's website down. But what Gail Norton did, and we believe she did it in order to generate political support for the Department of Interior's do-nothing attitude, she shut the entire Department of Interior's website down. So the fact that the Department of Interior's website has been down is not a result of the Cobalt decision. It's a result of one more heavy-handed tactic by the Secretary of the Interior.
Well, for non-Indians and for people around the country that support Indians generally, the concern that they're looking at is that maybe there's a lot more than the $5 billion, as you mentioned, that's been missing because of this.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows how much money is owed to Indians, but it's in the billions, and this has been going on since 1888.
All right, let's bring it up to 2002 right now. Bureau of Indian Affairs. Let's switch gears here just real quickly. The Bureau of Indian Affairs is responsible for the upkeep of the tribes, or for the, I guess you would say,
managing these trust responsibilities that the United States government has to Native American tribal government.
Right. Now let's get from that, and now the Bureau of Land Management is a separate entity, is it not?
That is correct.
So if they don't have accountability at Bureau of Land Management...
No, because the land that we're talking about, while managed by the Bureau of Land Management, is held in trust by the Department of Interior. You want to comment on that? No, this is... that land You know, your viewers would be interested to know that the little bits of Indian land that remain to this day, that Indian people that live on it cannot make money on that land, cannot lease that land out, cannot build on that land without the Great White Father's permission from Washington, D.C. And it's because of that trust responsibility that the federal government has that they have an obligation to make a full accounting of where all that money is, whether the Bureau of Land Management is leasing the land out to ranchers, allowing for mineral exploitation, or cutting of timber. It is still the Department of Interior, the Bureau of Indian Affairs' responsibility to make a full accounting of where all of that Indian money is.
All right, let's ask one serious question that's not been broached anywhere that I know of. The old days of the American Indian used to be they used to have a bad Indian agent, as they used to say. They used to have the evil Indian agent. You've seen it all done in all the movies on television of the bad Indian agent that misappropriated the funds of the Indians, took their blankets, took their medicines, took all of their food and their whatever, and did away with it. Is there still godlike powers by each one of the Indian agents that are in charge of the tribes?
Well, that's a very complex question. The Indian agents that you refer to existed during a period of time when Indian Affairs was under the Department of War. It would not be until the 1930s with the passage of the Indian Reorganization Act that the Bureau of Indian Affairs would be created, and finally Native Americans would no longer be under the authority of the United States military.
All right, so you're saying that the current Indian agents are just government bureaucrats working for the Bureau of Indian Affairs?
And, well, one more, let's take it one step further, is that with the Indian Reorganization Act, the United States Congress has finally mandated that the executive branch recognize and respect and work on a government-to-government basis with the Indian tribal councils and tribal governments that existed on those lands.
This is a lot of complexity, Michael, and let me explain where we want to go with this. What's the corrective action now for Dale Norton, for Bureau of Land Management, for Bureau of Indian Affairs? What should be happening at this moment? I mean, they're talking about years before the accountability of those trust funds are delineated.
Well, let's go back to you asked Chairman Shiloh earlier about all the tribes that are seeking federal recognition. Your viewers would be interested to know that in 1961, the great liberal president, John Kennedy, by the stroke of a pen, signed the Indian Termination Act. With a stroke of a pen, without any judicial review or right of appeal, 25% of all the federally recognized tribes in the United States were eliminated, were terminated. 67 of them were in California. So there is a movement across the country for those tribes to regain the recognition that they rightfully held. Now, in 1970, President Nixon changed the entire course of Indian policy on the part of the federal government by adopting the policy of self-determination. What we want the Secretary of the Interior to do and President Bush to do is to respect the right of tribal governments in their pursuit of self-determination and self-sufficiency to allow us to run our affairs on our own reservations as the independent, inherently self-sovereign nations that we have been before the founding of the Republic of the United States of America.
Damian Shiloh, let's bring it back to you now. How has this affected you directly? In other words, when did your Indian tribe become approved by the state of California?
Well, we were recognized by the state of California in 1993. Going even further back, I mean, we have written documentation that takes us back to 1776 with the founding of the Mission San Juan Capistrano.
All right, let's be honest about this. How many members are in your tribe?
I have under my leadership a little over 2,500 enrolled. 2,500.
All right. So what is your process to go forward to be recognized by the government of the United States?
With the recognition process, it's a matter of documentation of our history, showing that we've maintained our community and our culture throughout time and still have a government over ourselves. We've had to reorganize to try to meet this criteria to help them understand their idea of a true government as opposed to family leaders and the clan leadership that we've had historically.
All right, the naysayers are going to say you're just trying to get out of paying taxes. If you are, let's bring it down to what happens to your tribal members right now. Do you have to pay state taxes?
Yes, we still pay our state taxes.
Do you have to pay federal taxes?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. If you were recognized as a tribe, would you have to pay taxes?
Then we have the ability to obtain tribal lands, to get lands in trust, which would help protect us with that. But no, they still end up paying the state and federal taxes.
All right. Well, let's go back.
We could just, for a moment, the naysayers, let's call them what they are. Let's call them the bigots, okay? Does the city of Los Angeles pay taxes on revenues that they generate? Does the county of Los Angeles or the county of San Diego? Does the city of New York pay taxes? Heck no, because they're governments. These tribes are governments. They were governed, they were inherently self-governing entities before the United States government. Their source of political power does not flow from the Constitution of the United States or from the United States government. Why should an entity that is a government be forced to pay taxes to another government?
Let me ask you, Michael, this is a good philosophical question. I don't know where you're going to go with this, but I really would like to know this. You know, there's, what did we say, 561 tribes that are recognized currently in the United States.
Left in the United States.
Right, and then we have about
a lot more before. I wonder what happened to them.
Understood, but let's say there's 250 more now that are seeking to be recognized by the federal government. Wouldn't it make sense to have those members of those tribes join other tribes and therefore just become under the umbrella of one of the 561?
That makes no more sense than solving the problem in the Middle East by moving everybody from Israel to New York. Why don't we just move all the Jews to New York? Or why don't we move all the Palestinians to Egypt? Because they are sovereign people with a sovereign government and sovereign land. These individuals, these tribes were here before the United States was formed. If the United States of America is going to keep its word and be the leader of the free world and the advocate of human rights, isn't it time that they begin to keep their word to the first inhabitants of this land?
Understood. Now wait, let's go back here a minute. Just 1 second. When did they first start this recognized or unrecognized tribal system? In other words, was this going on from the beginning of time, by the time of
Let's get something straight. Most of the tribes that you're talking about were recognized. They're attempting to be re-recognized because they were illegally terminated. That's why one court after another has ruled that the United States government has an obligation to re-recognize it, and that the fashion in which they have been terminated was illegal.
So you're saying that the Kennedy decision back in the 60s was the one that turned the tail on this whole thing?
Let's be frank about it. The reason that John Kennedy signed the Indian Termination Act was because of massive lobbying from the states, particularly the state of California, that wanted to exterminate, to remove, to eliminate, to erase for all time from the face of their respective states the presence of self-governing, sovereign Indian tribes within their nation. It's a new form of genocide. Maybe they're not out killing people with guns, but they're eliminating them as a distinct, unique people who have been living on these lands since time immemorial.
All right, let's go back to Damien here for a minute.